Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Yarnflakes Podcast. My name is Audrey and this is a meaty yarny podcast from the southwest of France. Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me this week. For this new episode. I hope you're all doing very well. I am full of energy today. And so, no. We're going to pull down the curtain. There we go. Hopefully that's a little bit better. Hi, I hope you're doing very well. I am. I'm taking the opportunity that it's not such a dark day today. We've been having terrible weather here in the south of France. And apparently it's gonna be raining and storming, quite some nasty storms in the area for the entire month of November. So it's a bit of pain. I was lucky enough to catch a ray of sunshine earlier so I could photograph some of my some of my patterns, and now I'm trying to record this episode. So I have we're gonna deal with it. I have lots of things to share with you, because the last episode it was quite a while ago, and so I have done lots of things. So I've decided to segment what I'm going to talk about, because next episode won't be so far away. So this episode is going to be all about sweaters, because I have 3 sweaters, finished sweaters to share with you, and 1 work in progress. So I also will quickly mention another little thing. But yes, and so in the next episode, which will be in 2 weeks, I will talk about all smaller accessories that I have completed in the past months or so. So yes, I'm going to jump right away because I'm running late and unbelievable. This is not gonna be possible. I'm gonna have to go. Shutters, in case you live in England and you don't know what this is. Horrible life not to have window shutters. Now, what was I saying? Yes, I'm going to start right away. You can find timestamps for the different sections of the podcast in the description down below. So if you want to skip anything, if you're not interested in my patterns, feel free to jump ahead and skip what you like. I also put links to everything that I talk about, as well as my social media and patterns for sale on Ravelry and Patreon. So it's gonna be difficult. I have just released a new pattern on Ravelry, and this is the sweater that I'm wearing. And it's actually my first simple colorwork yoke, in the sense that it's the shape that you see a lot that is trendy right now. It's quite funny because I have so many of these colorwork sweaters planned, and it's they're charted. I have the yarn, I know exactly how they're going to be, I just need to knit them. But they're in my head, they're designed, they're here. And so I have the impression that I have made already many more, but actually no. And so this is my first simple top-down colorwork sweater. There's a roomy sweater as well, but it's it's a different construction with a particular shape and cables. And so this is more of a your standard colorwork sweater that are very trendy at the moment, I guess. And it's Apophenia. So, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right, but never mind. It's a colorwork yoke, so it's top down. You start here with a little bit of ribbing. There's some short rows at the back to lift the neck a little bit. And then you have this colorwork motif here, which is this geometric fun thing. The construction itself is very simple. I have made it so that it's easy to adapt. So for example here, basically, as soon as you've passed that big motif, you just have to knit until the right measurement for your yoke depth. So you can easily adapt it in case your row gauge is off, which unfortunately is often the case. It's difficult to get proper row gauge, so you can easily adapt that. You can, like, if you were to knit this bit longer, you could easily move that last band of colorwork and place it up as well, or you can move it down. You can imagine putting it here. Absolutely lovely, no problem. The shape of the sweater itself is, I wanted something that was very loose, so lots of these. I have 27 centimeters of these, and it's cropped because 1, I'm lazy, 2, it suits me better, so that's convenient. But yeah, lots of these, so it's like nice and flowy and really comfy and wearable. The sleeves themselves are quite fitted, a bit of negative ease, not too much. It's made so that it should have like 1 to 2 centimeters negative ease, which is not as much as, well, the thing is, other boxy type sweaters I found have much more negative ease in the upper arm, and it's too tight for me. So I don't know if it's that the designer plans too much negative ease, or I have big arms. I have a little idea on the matter, but let's just say it's muscle, okay? I do actually have a bicep, but yeah. Whatever. But the sleeves are meant to be fitted, so when you pick your size, careful with the sleeve. And the sleeves are, as usual with me, not too long because I like my sleeves to be up. And so they stop here, of course easily adjustable. And I've made a long ribbing so that I can do this, because I like to do that. And yes, so I really like the shape of it. Absolutely love this sweater, and absolutely love the colorwork. The colorwork is not complicated, no floats to catch except like at the very bottom. Like there's a couple rows here at the end where you kind of need to catch some floats, but it's okay. In the big motif there's no need, and it's fairly simple. I do recommend putting markers between the repeats because it's like it's a little bit tricky. It's fakely repetitive, as that you look at it and you would think that it's repetitive, but it's not really, because like for example you're gonna have 3cc, 2mc, 3cc, 2mc, 3cc, 2mc, and you're gonna think that it's like that all the way. Well, it's not. At some point it's gonna be like 2cc, and then you're gonna make a mistake and you're gonna be frustrated. So put markers. I do indicate it in the pattern, so if you do it you have no issue at all, and it runs pretty smoothly. So it is a beginner friendly color work. Now that sweater has a pretty dense gauge. It's 28 stitches per 10 centimeter or 4 inches. Yes, I know. Take a deep breath and relax and we will get through it together, and I will explain to you why that is. And it's not just to be a pain, and I'm not an evil person trying to make you suffer. So there are several advantages of having a dense gauge. First of all, your sweater will be warmer, your sweater will be more stronger, and also you can use any yarn you want. So the thing is, if you want to use superwash merino yarns that are very slippery, if you knit them at a 24-25 stitch gauge, you may have tension issues in the color work, and it's not going to look so good because the stitches are slippery, and it's just the color work doesn't look that good in superwash yarns at a loose or standard sort of gauge. However, if you use a tight gauge, then any yarn works, and this sort of makes it even more beginner friendly, because yes, it means that it takes longer to knit it, but your color work is gonna look really good. And so, for example, I have used a tweed base, an undyed tweed base by Hedgerow Yarns, which is a UK dyer, And my contrast color is a Superwash BFL. So this is Superwash Merino, this is Superwash BFL, all Superwash. This is dyed by Mahudli, which has an absolutely lovely, like, a whole identity is really lovely. And like, she doesn't dye a lot, sometimes her shop is on, sometimes her shop is off. But yeah, I really had like a little crush on her aesthetics, and so I ordered this beautiful yellow. And yellow is usually not my color, but this one I find really nice for me. This is the Firmin colorway, I think. Firmin, I don't know. I really like it. So both Superwash, both yarns that you would think are not so easy to work with in color work. And here, since the gauge is so dense, they just work really well. And no tension issues. It just sits really nicely. It makes a really smooth fabric from the start, even if you're not so great at color work. So that is one of the advantage of a loose, of a tight gauge. And the other is design-wise. The motifs are quite chunky, and I found that it was prettier if there were lots of them all around, because it sort of makes that optical illusion where the things don't look as blocks, like, because if you look at it, it's like a block, right? It's a square that sort of uses negative space. But if you look at it overall, it makes sort of this geometrical, smoother thing, which I think looks a bit better. And I really wanted to have loads of repeats all across the yoke. So to do that, I needed more stitches and a tighter gauge so that the sweater would still fit right across the shoulders. So yeah, you can see it. It's nice. And what I really like about this motif is how different it looks with varied yarns. So I wanted something that would work with variegated and speckled yarn. As you can see, I used a tweed base because I absolutely adore tweed, and I wanted something that would work with it as a background, and I think it does a really good job. It's really, really cool. It sort of tames the bold geometric aspect of it down, and I really like it. This was one of my favorite designs to test because all my testers, they made amazing thing. They all did absolutely great. So despite the tight gauge, they all did amazingly well, and they all look great. There are some that use like a more classic black and white or dark navy and white, and it just looks so different depending on the colors that you used. Someone used an acrylic blend and with the variegated green as the contrast, that is really, really beautiful and worked really well. And someone made like a dark charcoal and a golden contrast, and it looks so moody. And a lot of my testers used a yellow, so I think I sort of had an influence there. But I just really, really like what all my testers did. One of them made it into a cardigan. Amazing. I love that. That's why I absolutely love letting my testers do whatever they want, because then you end up with such creativity. And I really, really loved the testing process for this design, because I really recommend that you check their versions on Ravelry, because they all look terrific and so different, and I think it really gives you an idea of what you can do color wise and yarn wise for this sweater. Of course you could use more woolly rustic yarns, and if you use a lightweight yarn, it's gonna be really nice, because then the sweater itself is gonna be so light and nice, even if you make it longer than mine. Yeah, the construction of the sweater is simple enough that it's versatile, and I just really, really like that colorwork motif. And that was one of those moments when I was looking at the testers versions and I was like, is that really my design? Because it's looking very good. So yeah, I I am really happy with this sweater. I hope you like it. It's now available on Ravelry, and there is 20% off for the release, to thank the people who are going to need to get it when it's released. Until Sunday you will have 20% off with the code Apophenia, so it's like the name of the sweater. Everything is written in the description down below and in the Ravelry page itself. So yeah, I think I've said everything. Yes, I believe so. I hope you like it. I really do, and it's really comfy, and yeah, I like it. Quick mention, I did publish as well a couple of weeks ago the Albiera mittens. So these are my convertible mittens, knit in DK weight with this sort of texture cuff and cable, and I've talked about at great length in the episode where I was ridiculously excited about them, so I'm not gonna go over it again. I just wanted to let you know that they're published on Ravelry in case you didn't see them on Instagram or on Ravelry. And two things that came out with the testing process is that these are very accessible mittens, so if you're a beginner, no problem at all. My testers were really good with it. The thing is, I did simplify the construction a lot, because there's the convertible thing. I wanted them to be quite like basic, and for example the thumb gusset only has make one left increases here, instead of having them nicely symmetrically done. If you want to do make one left and make one right, that no problem, but I just didn't want to put that on top of all the rest. So there are some really basic simplified aspects to these mittens, so that they're really accessible. And second thing is regarding yarn choice. So I personally use a rather rustic yarn, which is snail down 3-ply, a DK weight, and I really recommend getting a woolly rustic yarn or something fluffy like alpaca, or knitting it double-stranded with a mohair, because so the way the convertible part works, what I preferred to do was picking up stitches here on the inside of the mittens. That way you can pretty much make all your other mittens convertible if you want, just using the tutorial that is in the pattern. But that means that the pickup can be visible here. It's more visible on that one. Here you can see. And the thing is, if you use a really smooth round yarn with a good definition, it will be more visible. It's okay, I mean it's part of the convertible thing, but if you want it not to be visible, rustic yarn or like a fluff. And the mohair versions are absolutely gorgeous. So if you have any leftover, all of these sweaters that are held double fingering weight and mohair, it makes amazing for this system, and I kind of want to make a version myself like this. So yes, that is what I wanted to quickly say about the mittens. And now we're on to my other finished objects. So in the past few months I have been test knitting 2 sweaters by 2 different designers, and both of them are now released. So I did show them to you as I was knitting them. So yeah, I'm going to show you this one. So this is Flo. This is a pattern by the Blue Mouse, so Emily Frank, and it's a drop shoulder, a garter stitch and drop stitch sweater in fingering weight that is knitted flat. You knit front, back, you pick up for the sleeves, you knit the sleeves, and then you seam all the way here. And I really like it. I have written a lot on my Ravelry project page, like a huge novel. I bet no one is reading that, but I have written a lot. Firstly, about gauge and measurements. So the patterns does give really nice thorough instructions on how to measure your swatch, how to make sure you get the right measurement, because since it's knit in garter stitch at a rather loose gauge, it's gonna expand a lot when you block it. and so you really need to take that into account. What I found helpful is that, well, first of all of these yarns are like a superwash merino nylon blend, and I have knit a lot of shawls, garter stitch shawls like this, at the same loose gauge, so I kind of knew how it would look after blocking, so I was able to reference that. And the way I measured my sweater as I was knitting on it, I believe I said it before, is that I was just stretching it so that it would actually look like it looks now once blocked. So that way I could sort of know how long it was going to be once blocked, and I managed to get the length that I wanted, which is a bit shorter than the pattern's sample. But yeah, mine didn't overly grow when blocked. It went just as expected, and I really liked the results. The plus of this sweater and why I chose to test it was because it can be used as a way to use up a lot of scrap yarn. And so I have lots of fingering weight scrap yarns, obviously, and I did weave a long stole with them, but maybe I will do another one. I'm not a blanket person, so I kind of don't know what to do with them. And so when I saw the sample by the Blue Mouth, I thought that's a great idea, I'm gonna try that. And like I said, that was also a way for me to challenge my skills at associating colors together, which is really not my thing. And in the end, I think I did really good. I think it looks really smooth. I only changed once. Basically, I used to have leftovers from this yellow, and it was too striking because it's like a warm, bright, and the rest of the brights here are more coldish, and so I replaced it with this one actually. And yeah, what helped was the fact that I have a neutral base, and that I have lots of it, so that whenever a transition looked harsh, I inserted either this tweed base, which is left over from this actually, this tweed neutral base, or this cream with speckles. They're pretty light, and the fact that there's lots of it, it sort of ties the sweater together, which I really like. Another detail is that the last color of the sleeve and the last color of the body, like at the bottom, are the same ones, and I think that's a good thing to do so that a whole looks coherent, basically. I think that really helps tie the sweater all together, and yeah, just some ideas there. But yeah, it's a type of sweater that, like, I really like it in the end, because I find it really interesting. Like, it's smooth, the pattern is really easy to follow, just garter stitch flat, pretty simple. The drop stitch gives a really nice textural interest in case you wanna make it in solid color. So yeah, my only thing is with the seaming. So first of all, invisible seam in garter stitch, I did not like it so much. Also, the thing is, since you use so many colors, what color do I use to seam? Because the seam is not invisible, especially in the drop stitch section, and if maybe I could have planned that differently, but the thing is, since my sweater is mostly lightly colored, I chose to do the seam with the tweed base, and so when it's on other colors it's quite visible, like here, you can see. It's not a very clean job, I admit. Like, it's, yeah. But I don't know, it kind of gives the whole thing a patchwork mood, and I kind of like it in the end. Like, when I put the sweater on to take the pictures, I was like, it falls really well on me. It looks really good. So yeah, maybe the seaming requires a little bit of planning, but in the end it's really cool, and I like the result, and I'm pretty happy with my color combination, which was the challenge for me. And yeah, so the Blue Mouse did release it on Ravelry a couple of weeks ago, and so you can get it if you want your very own scrappy sweater. Here it is. I think I have said everything. I'm not gonna run through all the yarns that I used because and yeah, the pattern is smooth to follow, no problem. The thing is, on the sleeve you kind of have to, when you do the first sleeve, you have to think about your color sequence, the drop stitch sequence, and the decrease sequence. And it's written like quite in a concise way in the pattern, which is really convenient. But you kind of have to think a little bit before until you manage to set your pace, and then it's okay. But it's not as mindless as the rest of the sweater, perhaps. But that's a good thing. Next up is the other sweater I just knitted, which also was released on Ravelry like a week ago, is the Sora sweater by Sari Nordlund. So, ta-da! I really like this one. So, this is a top-down raglan with like a really the best shape, like a comfiest shape. I actually am designing quite a bunch, like one of them is already testing a bunch of sweater with sort of loose sleeves as well. I don't know why I really like that at the moment. I'm saying this and I have this and I love it as well. But I don't know. After this I was feeling the loose sleeves. And this is perfect because the raglan is not too deep. Like you can wear a coat or a jacket, it's not a problem. And the sleeves are so loose and comfy and lovely and I love it. So mostly mindless knitting, with some brioche details in the neckline, and I really love the neck. It's one of those thick, like I hate rolled necks. I don't like it when it's like this. Basically, I think when it passes my... What's the name of this in English? The Adam's apple? Is it Adam's apple, literally? Maybe, probably. The thing that's really visible in men and look here. I think when it passes that, I don't like it. But the type of things that is quite trendy at the moment is just have it raised a little bit, and it's not really stuck to your neck. It's just a little bit upwards like this. I really like that, and this kind of has that effect, and I really like it. So brioche details, 2-color brioche here on the bottom of the sweater as well, and on the sleeves you have this, which is brioche again, but this time with some motif, and I really love that. It was actually the first time that I was making brioche with motifs. Brioche is one of those things that I did, and I did a basic one, like a simple straight brioche, and I was kind of like, okay, it's not difficult at all, it's fine. Like, why is everyone making a huge fuss about how hard it is, because like it's really not. And then it kind of made me push to the side the plans I had, because I do like the brioche motifs, like all those shawls by Knit Graffiti and Susan Sommer and everything. I love them, and I do want to make some, but it just kind of made me put them to the side because I'm like, so it was actually my first time making motif in brioche, and I really like it, and I think this looks really good. The tutorials that Sari puts in for the decreases and the increases are great, straightforward, no problem, really simple, and it just really makes the difference. And I absolutely adore this sweater. I think it's gonna be like one of my most worn one this winter. I love it. I used actually exactly the same yarn as this, but I got it from a different dyer. It's the same base, except this one was sold by Mothi and the Squid, and the contrast color was some leftover Maison Corlaine, which is a French indie dyer, in their Belle Epoque base, which is merino and silk, and in the Sibyl colorway. Beautiful Sibyl, beautiful, and I just really like it. I really like Sari's version as well, like Sari, the designer's version, because she, like, the colors are not so contrasting together and they look really elegant. But I kind of like sharp contrast too. I think it kind of looks like a candy. I don't know. I really, really like this sweater. I think I satisfied my tweed crave first. Like I really had some tweed craving, and here it is. But yeah, I think I've said everything. The pattern is great, flawless, smooth, simple, no problem. And the fit, I really love it. I absolutely love the fit. So voila. I think I've said everything. So it's also available on Ravelry. Sari published it a couple of weeks ago, and you can find it over there. And I'm going to move on to my works in progress, which is a new design of mine. So I've been wanting for a while to make a sweater with options. So the idea is that it's a simple raglan with a little texture detail, you will see, and I wanted to have like options that you can mix and match, so you can tailor it to your taste. So for example, it's gonna have either a ribbed or a I-cord neckline. The body is going to be straight or waist shaping and hips shaping. This is me, by the way. And the hem is either going to be normal hem or a curved high-low hem, kind of like the ones that are in shirts. So this is what I'm doing, and so I wanted to make two versions to kind of illustrate all the options. Like there would be version A, which is the most basic, and then version B with all the options, other type of option, and then you can mix and match. So I started because I decided that then I could just make two sweaters, one for my boyfriend and one for me, because like as a consequence I kind of wanted to show that this sweater is like a unisex one as well. And so I started the one for... Oh, Marius, don't watch this episode. I have to tell him. I have to warn him beforehand. Go away. So I'm making him for Christmas his version. So here it is. It's the version with the ribbed neckline. So it's a top-down raglan that starts flat here, so it's higher, and it's gonna be color blocked, this version. So the straight body, simple hem, but color block to sort of have an interest as well, and I will give tips on how to change the color. And so yeah, this is where I am. I actually almost finished the sweater. Like I had the whole body down and bound off, and then I woke up yesterday morning and I was like, I changed my mind. Because so there's a texture interest here, and at first I sort of did like a slip stitch motif, like a cable-y thing, and in the end I didn't like it. I wasn't satisfied with it, so I decided to change it. I changed it to this like sort of waffly texture. There it is. Ah, black yarn. What a great idea. This is the same ribbing that is at the bottom of my Feriga sweater, which I published like last year. And ever since I did that sweater, I wanted to make a whole sweater in this ribbing, because it's like really nice and flat and squishy, and I really like it. But the thing is, there's a lot of fluffy sweater that sort of looks the same. I haven't seen yet the exact same stitch motif, but basically as soon as it's like ribbing or even brioche, it sort of looks the same. And so I kind of given up the idea of making that sweater, because yeah, whenever like I can avoid to make something similar, I do it, because the problem is there's a really unhealthy situation with plagiarism, because there is real nasty plagiarism happening, and it's really a bummer. And the thing is, the fact that every designer seems to live in their own bubble, pretending like the other designers' work don't exist, whenever by accident, because it happened, or something looks similar, or even something that looks like just a tiny element, because then, since people are not so transparent about stitch patterns, stitch dictionaries, and where they get their ideas from, people tend to get the impression that certain stitches belong to a designer, which sometimes is like, sometimes designer properly invent stuff, obviously, but most of the time it's not the case. And the thing is, as soon as someone else, like, quite genuinely is using that idea because they found it another way, it's like people start to take sides and pretend like there's a copy, and it's gotten to the extent is that, like, even the slightest similarity, people are gonna point it out, even when it's not, when it's like really not the same technique or principle, or it's still very different. And the problem is, I think that's because designers are not so open to talk about this. Like, the only person I've seen mentioning this type of thing is Sari Nordlund, who addressed it. And like, I think it's important to talk about this because it happens, and the problem is, if you pretend like you're in your bubble and you don't see the other designers' work and you don't promote it when it deserves promoting, I just think that it's sad. Once it's sad, and it just makes this really unhealthy environment where people are going to see similarities when there are, and sometimes there's no similarities, but people are still going to think that they are, because when you're not behind the scenes, sometimes you don't see how a thing is constructed and how different certain type of thing is, or how common a technique is. And so you feel like, this happened, for example, with mosaic knitting. You probably know Natasha Hornsby, I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right. You know her. Amazing designer, lots of mosaic shawls, like amazing. She was published in various magazines as well. Amazingly talented. I love her style. Like really black and white, striking, moody aesthetic. You know her. And she did not invent mosaic knitting. Like, the stitches that she used, you can find them in stitch dictionaries. And what makes her patterns unique, and so why she's so talented, is all of the other things that she does, like how she implements them in the pattern, how whenever she does cables or texture, how it's made so that it fits every angle of the design. Like, she's really, really good at this. But what people see from the outside is the mosaic motif. And then if you see another designer making the same mosaic motif, you're gonna be like, oh, you copied her. And they're like, no. Like, yeah, there are mosaic stitch dictionaries where these patterns are found. Anyway, you can use the same motifs. You can use similar principles. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're making a raglan, you're making a raglan, you see. But, you know, it's a fine line where plagiarism is. And the problem is, when independent designers, are not being transparent with it and talking to each other about it when things like this happen, well, then people think that either everyone is copying everyone, or that no one is copying everyone, and then you cannot properly defend yourself when you're actually being plagiarized, because people are gonna say, well, then what's the difference between Drop's design copying exactly the same colorwork stitch motif, and then someone making a Selbo star, you see? And I think if people were more transparent and mindful of other designers' work about this, I think it would be healthier, and it would help everyone not have like fake ideas, or believe that some that some similarities are too big or not big enough, blah blah blah. Anyway, as a matter of fact, I do believe that there are enough chunky, lovely sweaters with a similar texture to this, and I don't want to make mine anymore. Maybe I will change my mind, but I actually found another texture that I like, so I will do that. But yes, I still really like it, and I think as an insert here, it looks really cool. It's sort of is nice and squishy, and you will see it better, like in the other color. But yes, because it's gonna be color block with this one. And hey, well, speaking about drops, this is drops yarn. So I feel like I always have to say it because I don't wish to support drops yarn by buying their yarn anymore because of precisely their plagiarism habits. But I do have it in my stash, and I think it really fitted my boyfriend's need. This is their cotton merino, and so any cotton merino blend would do really well. My version is going to be a held double with alpaca. It's gonna be like a cream version, and I'm gonna make the I-cord, waist shaping, and a high-low curved hem for myself. The reason I'm doing the curved hem is because someone, I've been doing a few sweaters that have a split hem, which I really like, and as I was sharing it on Instagram, someone contacted me, a French knitter contacted me, saying that she couldn't read English patterns, but she couldn't find any French patterns that had a high-low hem like the ones you find in a shirt, you know? The one that's in the pavement sweater, for example, by Vera Valimaki. And that's true, actually. I haven't found any French patterns that have it. Besides the pavement sweater, I didn't see a lot of them. If you know of any other pattern, let me know. Because maybe that I can then refer that knitter to them. But I thought that's an interesting thing to offer because it's actually very simple to do, like it's short rows, and I kind of like the look of it, so I thought why not offer it as well as an option. So yeah, that's what's happening with this design. This is version A, sort of like the most basic version, but that's going to be color block. I'm almost to the point where I'm gonna change again colors for the rest of the body, slowly catching up everything that I undid. But yes, and what else would I want to say? Yes, the raglan. You know, it's the thing that when you start designing garments, you think, I'm gonna figure out my basic raglan formula, my basic raglan yoke, and then everything is gonna be so easy. You bet it is. I constantly want to change something. Like every time I make a new raglan, I always want to change something. Like whether it's the shape of the raglan, because I like to sort of move the shape of my raglan a little bit to see what works better for different body types. I always want to change how the instructions are written. It's just constantly complicating my life. But this time what I wanted to do is to experiment with the raglan cheat sheet, because I never did it before. And basically the way I usually write my raglan instructions is that my raglan is separated into different increase ratios. So sometimes you increase both body and sleeves every other round, and sometimes you increase only the body every other round and the sleeves on the fourth round, and sometimes you do different things depending on the size, blah, blah, blah. And it makes the instructions okay, but the problem is when I want to insert like a texture motif or something a bit more complicated, I feel quite limited. And the problem is the raglan system is a bit tricky because of the depth that you need to reach, and depending on the depth that you want and the ease that you want both on the body and the sleeves, it's a little bit tricky. And so I decided to try using a cheat sheet. I have seen some designers do it, And I found as a knitter it's really easy to read from. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's a table, and you look for your sides, you're gonna say round 1, increase body. You increase body. Round 2, even, no increase, so even. Round 3, body plus sleeves increase. And so I think I'm gonna do that. And why I'm gonna do that is that because I want this pattern to also be a way to force people to understand how a raglan works. Because I always find it really interesting when people understand the construction rather than blindly following instructions, because when you understand how things work, you don't have so many issues, you don't do as many mistakes, you don't have so many issues later, and you can easily modify stuff. And I mean, a raglan is the perfect thing to do that, because it's simple enough, and it's interesting enough that you have some stuff to actually understand. So a raglan is 4 parts, right? Front, back, and the 2 sleeves. And so what I'm gonna do is, and I will make a video for this, because I think often when you actually vocally and visually show stuff, it's a little bit more understandable. I will make a video of me following the cheat sheet so that you can see how it works. So what I will do simply is explain that you increase along the raglan seams here, and that you either increase on the body, so on these sides and these sides, on the sleeves, so inside here and inside here, or on both. And I will also explain when to do a make one line and a make one left, which if you already made a raglan, you know, but some people, like, even if they already made a raglan or 2, they don't really understand why that is. So that's my goal with this sweater. 1 is to have a unisex pattern with like a multitude of options, like 12 different options overall that you can mix and match to your liking. 2, the raglan cheat sheet system, which forces you to understand a raglan construction, and the little texture as a bonus because I like it. So yeah, that is the goal with this sweater. I have to finish this one and send it over to my boyfriend in Romania in a package, because I would like to get mine done as well, and because I'm going to spend Christmas time with him in Romania, and we're gonna go into a lovely place, and I would like to photograph the 2 of them in Christmas time, like during the holidays. So maybe the sweater will be up for testing. Oh my god, I'm losing my word. For testing in the new year. I think that's gonna be it. So yeah, the sweater will be called Riu, which is river in Occitan, the original language of Southwest France, where I live. Most generally, Riu is I found in Provence region, so the south, the old and regional languages of the south of France, where the lavender is. My mom was really laughing the other day because she found on Instagram someone who has a business. I think she's Canadian, and she has a business. Basically, she buys stuff. She comes to France in holidays. She holds retreats in the south of France, in Provence, in south of France, like in the French Riviera, you say. No one says that in France, but you call it like this, French Riviera. Like lavender fields, stuff like this. And she goes into the old little markets that are in that area, where they sell lavender things. They sell like what's the name, baskets, like handmade woven baskets, you know, old metallic little buckets that are like typical from this area, like little ceramic things as well. And basically she buys them from markets, and you can buy them. It's really cheap made stuff, so it's costing like 5-10 euros a basket. And then she goes back to Canada and she sells it on the website for like $100. And my mom found that really funny, and she found herself a new business idea, so she said she wanted to do the same. So beware, my mom is coming America and selling you overpriced stuff because it's French, even though you totally have the same things over there. Like, I was seeing the ceramic bowls, like it's a bowl in ceramic, and it wasn't even that pretty. It was like white with a little geometric green motif, and I'm like, but I know so many amazing ceramic and pottery artists from America, and I'm pretty sure you have a good tradition of pottery and things, and so, like, why are you getting the one from France that really, like, there's a lovely French ceramics, I'm not saying. It's just that this one in particular was not good. It's just that this person was selling it, saying it came from French Provence, and she was selling it like $100, and like, no, no, horrible. Just get one by a lovely artist that's local to you and that does amazing stuff. I follow a few ceramic American pottery artists, ceramic and pottery artists on Instagram that are in the States and that is, or Canada, and that are so beautiful. I think you know maybe Diana Fayt, Fayt. She makes like, she paints like rabbits and like really she makes really beautiful stuff. Anyway, I don't know why I went into that, but yeah, so French Provence, like the south of France, has similarities in their regional language, and so Rio means river. So that's gonna be the name of this weather. I don't know why I went on that rampant. I hope it was somewhat interesting, and I don't fall into the trap of buying French things that are overpriced, because really, ask me, I'll send them to you. Because really, no, don't do that. But yes, I'm done with this episode. I have said everything that I wanted to talk about, and I'm running late. I think it's gonna be lunchtime soon. I don't know what I'm going to eat. I have some falafels. Maybe I should do some. Oh yes, I'm gonna make some sort of falafel pita bread with like tzatziki cream on top. Now I'm hungry. Okay. Thank you so much for watching this episode. I will see you again in a couple of weeks for a new episode. Oh, one last thing. Patreon. So this month on Patreon, the special video will be tips and tricks about knitting a sweater. So I took the example of the sweater design that will come out like in a couple of weeks, and like I showed how I join in the round, how I bind off in the round without a jog, how I personally pick up for the sleeves. It's some sort of a vlog thing for the creation of this sweater with tips and tricks along the way. So that's the theme of the video on Patreon this month, with the reminder that these videos are recorded in French but I subtitle them in English. So if this theme, this video might be of interest to you, don't hesitate to join us on Patreon. It would be lovely to see you there, and in any case you can always chat around, because everything is written in English as well. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye bye.